My name is Dick Bremer. I'm going to be moderating the proceedings here for the next hour or so. This is going out on Facebook, on Fox Sports North's Facebook page. And so it's a nice opportunity for you to get to meet a couple of new Twins and the general manager of the Minnesota Twins. I'll offer up the introductions here to my immediate left. He is from Arkansas. He came here and left 23 degrees, and now he's in 3 degrees. How about a nice Minnesota warm welcome for Blake Parker?
Thank you, thank you.
And the man in the middle, appropriately in the middle, because he's in the middle of all the transactions that the Twins have made and will make, the general manager for the Minnesota Twins, Thad Levine. And another new Twin, although he's not new to Major League Baseball or the American League for that matter, from the Baltimore Orioles. That's where you probably remember him the most. He was finished the season last year with the Milwaukee Brewers. He's going to be playing a lot of second base here at Target Field. Jonathan Schoop. And protocol would suggest that maybe what we need to do or hear from first is the general manager who brought these two guys in here, and we'll ask Thad about that. But be prepared out there, because for me, the best part of these little forums is hearing from you. And I'm going to ask a few questions up here, but I want you to have the opportunity to ask these gentlemen some questions, because that's what TwinsFest is all about. It's more about you than anybody up here on stage. But with that, Thad, let me ask you, since you acquired Jonathan Schoop first, about what your feeling was at the time and why you thought he would be the ideal man to fill the hole at second base.
Well, you know, we walked into the offseason with, I think, a few prominent holes on our team, you know, vacated by such luminaries in the Minnesota Twins lore as Brian Dozier, Joe Mauer, and then probably a little less well-known, but was with us last year, Logan Morrison. So we had 3 real openings on our offensive side of the ball. And I think when we had the opportunity this offseason, we were really monitoring the second base market. We felt it was one of the strongest markets in the free agency this offseason. But one guy that we really were keeping an eye on was a guy with the Milwaukee Brewers at the time. His name was Jonathan Schoop. They ended up non-tendering him, much to our excitement. We immediately got on the phone with his agent, Steve Veltman. We started having some serious conversations, showed extreme interest in him at the outset. And I just want to tell you some of the reasons why we're really excited about him. One is that he's 27 years old. He's been one of the best second basemen in the American League. I think this market has gotten to love Brian Dozier, and I'd put Jonathan Schoop right up there as a guy who maybe the national markets don't know quite as much about, but this guy's performed at an extremely elite level. Last year, he had a little bit of a challenge season, and it was in a large regard to the fact that he had a pretty significant injury earlier in the season. Had an abdominal strain that hampered him throughout the year, and I think one thing that really drew us to him as well is the fact that rather than going on the disabled list, walking away from his team and getting better and making sure he's 100% on the field, he fought through it. He played throughout the course of the season, really kind of hampered by that injury. So we look at his performance 2017 and before, and we're a little less focused on what happened in 2018. And we see a guy who's going to fit in perfectly with our young core of players. We look at Cleveland as the class in our division. We're trying to scare the heck out of them this year. That's our goal. And I think we feel one way to do that is to count on the likes of Miguel Sano bouncing back, Byron Buxton bouncing back, Jonathan Schoop, Michael Pineda coming back from an injury. So we feel like we've got this core of players, all of whom are in their primes of their careers, who are ready to strike. And they're all going to do it together, and we're ecstatic to have them. All the makeup stuff that we delved into on Jonathan checked out extremely well. He's a tremendous teammate. And he's a great athlete. So I think we're extremely excited to have Jonathan join us right in the prime of his career. He's going to be a great weapon for us offensively. I think Rocco will be able to hit him really almost anywhere in the lineup. He's going to be very versatile for us offensively. One thing we do know is he's going to anchor second base, be the double play combination with Jorge Polanco. So we're ecstatic to have Jonathan Schoop on board.
Very nice. We're excited to see Jonathan in a Twins uniform. We were impressed with what he did against the Twins. Now he'll be able to do it for the Minnesota Twins. All right, then Thad, about Blake Parker here to your right.
Yes, so the way the offseason played out, we were able to address some of our offensive needs first, and then we turned all of our attention to the pitching side of things, which I would say, candidly, is still an area where we're openly, aggressively talking to some free agents out there. Blake Parker is represented by Barry Meister, who is an agent that we have a very close relationship with. He reached out to us early in the offseason just to check in. He has actually a stable of relievers who were free agents this offseason. We expressed the most interest in Blake, and Blake has spent the last 2 years with the Anaheim Angels where he's accumulated a lot of saves. Probably more than that, though, he's demonstrated a clear ability to pitch 3 of the last 9 outs of the game against some of the best hitters in the American League and dominate them. So we're really excited to have him join our group. I think we've had a really nice success over the last couple of years with guys like Brandon Kinsler, Fernando Rodney, Zach Duke pitching towards the back end of the ball games for us. What Blake allows for us to have, I think, is another extremely viable arm that we think can neutralize the best parts of lineups late in games. I think as you guys have seen over the last couple of years, managers and pitching coaches are deploying relievers a little bit differently than they ever had. You don't necessarily have a lockdown closer, 8th inning guy, 7th inning guy, 6th inning guy. I think what Blake allows us to do is the best part of lineups coming up in the 6th inning, 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning, it doesn't matter. Blake is going to be ready to go out there, toe the rubber, neutralize those hitters, gives us another experienced arm back there who can work with some of our younger guys as we're continuing to hope that they mature at the major league level, brings a lot of leadership guidance to that group of people. So I think his skills on the field are one thing, and I think those are significant. Those are going to help us win a lot of baseball games. More than that, we were very particular in targeting Blake because everything we'd heard about him is how quality a teammate he is, and with the experience he has, we genuinely believe he's going to help the maturation of some of our younger arms, guys that are going to be pitching here for years to come. So I think he's going to be a tremendous weapon, both on the field, probably equally for us right now in the clubhouse. Another thing to note about Blake is that he was a free agent, but as a function of the fact that he still is in the arbitration system, he'll be with us next year as well. So this was not just a single-year acquisition. Blake Parker will be with us in 2019 and 2020, so we're ecstatic to have him on board.
Very nice, very nice. Jonathan, let's talk not so much about 2018 because, as Thad explained, you were hurt and the game's hard enough to play when you're healthy. Very difficult when you're hurt. But let's talk about the 2017 season because that seemed to be the year where everything came together for you. You proved you could hit with power, you were excellent out in the field. What was it about the 2017 season that brought everything together for you?
The 2017 season, I became like more mature and I became know myself better. So I enjoyed the game more. Not so much trying to do too much, just go out there and enjoy and play baseball and trying to win and compete and be there for your teammate on the field and outside the field, and the baseball will pay you back. So you have fun, go out there and just do your routine, listen to your coach and listen to what your teammate have to say and get better, and every day go out there and improve and forget about yesterday. If you lose, if you win, forget about it and come the next day and compete and have fun and try to win.
The impression I got, of course, we only saw the Orioles, a few games every year, but that the Orioles didn't shift very much in the infield. We do a lot of that here. How are you in making that throw from short right field?
Yeah, I'm good at it. I'm really good at it. I got a strong arm, though.
Blake, let's talk with you for a moment here. Obviously, Thad expressed and the Twins expressed interest in you, but the question is then, there's a big market out there for relief pitchers. What was it about this situation that attracted you?
Well, playing against the Twins for, a couple of the past years in a row now, you really get a sense of family when you come into Target Park with the fan base. You see a young group of guys, but I just felt welcomed as soon as I immediately started talking to Thad and some of the front office staff. I really felt like I was already a part of the Twins family. The new pitching coach, Wes Johnson, is also an Arkansas native. As soon as I talked to him, I had talked to him previously a couple off seasons ago. We were going to get together and do some work. I had heard Wes Johnson's name be thrown around before I had ever known that he was going to get in the pro side of things. But really excited to work with him, and like I said, I know he's a new face around here, but just to have that Arkansan roots and I guess the connection there really helped me to feel at home and make that connection.
You know, Thad talked about it. The role of a relief pitcher has evolved dramatically and fairly recently, and you will be asked to get outs in the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. And it's a little unfair, I guess, of me to ask one reliever how all relievers feel about that. But what's the mentality like now out in the bullpen? Because roles are less defined, and you're going to be asked to pitch probably anywhere, as Thad said, from the 7th inning on. Are relief pitchers okay with that?
Well, you know, if they're not, they better get okay with it. I love being out there when the game's on the line. If it's a crucial point in the 7th inning, I pitched in the 3rd inning sometimes last year, but you know, it's.
Oh, we don't want too much of that.
Well, that's a different situation. We won't talk about that anyway. But yeah, just being out there when it's crunch time and being able to contribute to your team, whether it be a win or just a couple big outs to transition to the next guy. You know, the past couple years with the Angels, it's kind of been the same situation. We haven't really had a definite closer, so it's kind of been next man up situation, and so that's something that we can embrace with this bullpen, and I'm ready to rally the troops, and whoever's going to be ready to close can get it done. I know we got some guys that can get it done out there.
Thad, it seems like the paradigm in baseball has changed a little bit for general managers, and you mentioned it at the outset. One of the things that appealed to you about Jonathan Schoop was his age, 27. And it seems like the focus now in baseball, as the game has gotten younger, that general managers are looking for players who still have peak years ahead of them rather than whatever the age is, let's just say 30, then on the back end of that. Now, is that fair to say, first of all, and I guess as a fan, why did it take general managers so long to realize that the best years are before age 30 than after?
Well, you know, I think for decades now, women across America have told us that men past the age of 30 are almost worthless. It just took us. Why are only the ladies laughing? Yeah. It just took us a while to catch up to that fact. I'm sensitive because, you know, the man to my right, I believe, maybe 33 years old or something.
Right.
So it's different for pitchers. You know, it's fascinating, Dick, because the evolution of the game really does speak to age. You know, I think we've all, when we've been building championship teams or trying to build championship teams in the past, you do really balance experience with youth. But when you watch the playoffs each of the last couple seasons, you see a lot of young men who are between the ages of 23 and, let's say, 28 or 33 if they're pitchers, who are really doing some significant damage on the biggest stage. But I really do think there's a balance because, you know, Jonathan just referenced one of the reasons he felt 2017 was his best season was because of probably the influence of some of the older players who he got the chance to play with. He may chat with you guys at some point about Nelson Cruz and the role he played in us acquiring Nelson Cruz this offseason and what Nelson's meant to him in his career. So I think it's a balance. You know, it's no different than anyone else here who's in the line of business. You want some young people who are willing to work around the clock and put in a lot of energy and time, but you also want to surround them with some people who have some really quality experience to capitalize on their skill sets and help them mature through some areas that some of those guys with experience had already gone through in their careers. So it's a balance, but we certainly are enjoying the fact that our fans get to watch some really young players cutting their teeth in the big leagues, guys who probably their best years of their career are still ahead of them.
And I guess, Jonathan, that's the question that, you know, we've discussed it on television, on our telecast quite a bit. It takes a while for hitters. I mean, a lot of people think hitting a baseball and hitting it hard is the most difficult thing to do in any sport. In your case, we've thrown out the figure 1,000 at-bats. Sometimes it's 1,500 at-bats. And I think in Nelson Cruz's case, it was probably over 1,500 at-bats. In your case, how many at-bats did it take roughly for you to begin to get a grasp of how or what type of hitter you are?
I think around there, like thousands, around there, because, you know, you, like you say, you get mature and you get to know the league too, and you know what you can do and what what is your weakness, what is just your strong part. So I get to know myself a little bit, what I got to do for me to get better, and like that say. So Nelson Cruz was a big guy for me. So I got called up 2013, but my first year in the big league was 2014. So, and I was lucky enough to play with Nelson Cruz. He's one of the best teammates you can ever have, and this guy is a hard worker. He's a really positive guy. Sometimes you gotta have positive guys around you. So no negative, positive all the time. This guy is too much positive, you know, like. So he work hard, you know, he show you the way how to work. So you gotta go left, you gotta go do your routine and go out there and compete. Because sometimes we think we go out there and we can go 4 for 4. But Nelson well told me, you know, if you do your work and go out there and do your best, and everybody will be happy because you know you get your work in and go out there and compete and trying to win. Sometimes you can go 0 for 4, but help your teammate score around and help them watch some sign that they don't see, and that's why you win the game. It's not all about you. It's about the teamwork. So whatever you can do to have the team win, you got to do it.
Thad, you were in Texas when that epiphany came for Nelson Cruz, and what did you see before, and what have you seen since when the light bulb goes off for a very talented baseball player?
Nelson Cruz, who you guys will get to meet, I think he'll be here tomorrow, and you'll get to see him play a lot this season. You know, as Jonathan said, I just would echo, I got a chance to be in Texas when he really got to come up to the big leagues. He was a little bit older when he did. He was 26 years old, which is a little bit unique for a guy to come up at that age and have the career that he's had. He's really made himself into an exceptional offensive weapon. I think one of the things to echo what Jonathan said is, you know, as much as Nelson helped Jonathan, Michael Young, who was a stalwart with the Texas Rangers, helped Nelson Cruz, and then Adrian Beltre helped Nelson Cruz. Nelson tells a story about how when he came up, he was really anxious and nervous, and he didn't feel comfortable in the clubhouse. He didn't perform very well. We actually asked him if he wanted to be a pitcher because he had an excellent arm. He actually said no at the time, which was the right answer. But then once he got settled in the big leagues, and really probably was the second or third year there, we brought in a new manager at that time named Ron Washington, who really allowed the players to play with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, allowed them to let their personalities show. That's when Nelson took off, and I think that's when he felt comfortable in the clubhouse. He felt it was safe for him to be himself and go out there and let all of his talents play, and he has now put together one of the best, 12-year runs as a DH in the major leagues. I hope that's what we're about to embark upon here with a little bit of the guidance from somebody like Nelson Cruz, and maybe he can help some of our younger guys realize their potential by encouraging them to go out there, play with the freedom just to be who they are, nothing more, nothing less. And I think if all of our guys do that together, we're going to watch something really special happen here in 2019.
Blake, let's talk about your evolution as a pitcher, what type of pitcher you are, what your pitches are, what you throw, and how you've evolved as a pitcher in your time in the big leagues.
Well, my evolution started a little bit later. I know I am 33, but if you subtract the 3 years that I didn't pitch in college and the 1 year that I didn't pitch in pro ball, I'm 29.
There you go. All right.
So I fall in that range that Thad was talking about.
All right.
No, I was mainly, when I first came on, they really liked my arm. I think that I got drafted just on my arm strength as it was. But shortly after, my evolution really became knowing my strengths and then just kind of, I guess, evolution isn't the right word, but becoming the pitcher that I am today just from doing things like picking guys' brains and learning as much as you can from some of the older guys, and whether it be in AA or AAA or your first couple years in the big leagues. But really just trying to learn something new every day and get better every single day. And I guess something that really took off for me was developing a split finger. It really was a pitch that I started working on in AAA about 2 weeks before I got called up in 2012 for the first time. And I started just trusting it and throwing it. And, I had some success with it early, so I just tried to kind of perfect it, and I guess the rest is history. A lot of luck and a lot of timing has gone into my career, but I'm happy where I am today, and I'm happy to be with the Twins, and and win in 2019, because I think
That
we
sounds
can.
good. That sounds good to everybody here. Let's win in 2019. Jonathan, you are, and get your questions ready because I'm going to go and work the audience here now. But one more question from me for you. You're from Curacao, right?
Yes.
And you're familiar with some people in the Twins organization because of the World Baseball Classic. We've seen some really talented teams in that international competition. But as a youngster in Curacao, how were you introduced to the game of baseball? And if you have a question for anybody up here, raise your hand. And we've got about a half hour left here. We'll get to as many questions from you as we can. Jonathan.
I started playing baseball since I was four. And then we was watching Andrew Jones from Curacao. So in Curacao, it's the only challenge was to watch Andrew Jones play baseball. And then from there, I keep growing up. And then I went to Little League World Series. So the Little League, so I won it in 2014. I don't know if you guys know Profar. So me and Profar played together in the Little League World Series. And from there, we win it. And from there, we keep thinking that baseball, we love to play baseball. So all we do down there is playing baseball. We go to school from 7:30 to 1 o'clock. And then from there, we go to the field and stay to the field till 9, 10. And my mom come to pick me up and go home. And the next day is the same thing again. Every day the same thing. And from there, I got lucky to sign, and I'm here with the Twins.
Hey, Jonathan, do you mind sharing with this group who was on your last World Baseball Classic team? Give us a few players who are on that team.
We got Andrelton Simmons. He's with the Angels. We got T.D. Gregorius with the Yankees. Kelly Jansen with the Dodger. Profar. Now he was with the Texas. Now he's with the, Oakland. Ozzy Albies wasn't there. He's the second base for the Atlanta. He was hurt. We got Fred Valentine. He played in Japan. He had like 60 home run 3 years ago. We got Roger Bernardina. He played with the Washington 4 years ago too.
Xander Bogaerts.
Xander Bogaerts with the Boston.
So how did Hensley Mullins, who was the manager, figure out who the heck was going to play shortstop on that team?
He just flip a coin and whatever want to play shortstop, want to play shortstop.
Yeah, a lot of great middle infielders there. Give us your name and where you're from and what your question is.
My name is Kevin. I'm from Burnsville. I have a question for Thad Levine. Thad, last night I sat in here and listened to Cole Stewart talk. I was very impressed with what he had to say about somebody that helped him by the name of maybe Josh Halstead or something, an analytics person. And that impressed me, what he talked about, and it seemed to have had a big impact on that young pitcher. I'd like to know if you know who I'm talking about, and then some of his background, and did you hire him, and as I'm interested in the analytics angle of it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question, Kevin. This is an investment we made when Derek and I came on board in the offseason in 2016. And I know from the fans' perspective, this wasn't the most exciting investment we made, but we did invest a lot in our infrastructure of our analytics department. The gentleman of whom Kevin references, his name is Josh Kalk. He came to us from the Tampa Bay Rays. He actually, I think, has a PhD in physics, if you can believe it. So that's his background. He's a little bit smarter than most of us. I think from like 30 feet away, he can see your brain. But Josh Kalk has an expertise and a real affinity for pitching analysis. So one thing that we do before we acquire a player, before we talk about developing a player, is we ask Josh to assess his talents. Josh gives us a sense as to whether or not we can do something different with that pitcher, or maybe maximizing his pitch mix, de-emphasizing one pitch, emphasizing another pitch. The reality, and I don't know if Blake can attest this, is oftentimes when you sit down with a pitcher and ask them, rank your 3 or 4 pitches in order of how effective you think they are, you'd be surprised as to how often it's actually not lining up with exactly how effective that pitch is. So sometimes psychologically they think their sinker is their best pitch, and in practice, the hitters also really like that sinker. So Josh has an ability to break those pitches down. More than that, he also has the ability, based upon a guy's arm angle, rotation on the ball, recommend maybe a new pitch to introduce. You know, Blake talked about how later in his career he started throwing a split finger. I'm quite certain that may have been because either a teammate, a coach, somebody in the front office recommended that he would be a good candidate for it. Josh does that. So with Cole Stewart, the pitch was what is called a one-seam fastball. So normally if you think about a baseball, if you're rotating on 4 seams, that's a 4-seam fastball. It tends to have the most true carry. 2-seam fastball is what we all know is like a sinker. It tends to sink. Well, 1-seam fastball even sinks more than that. So he felt Cole Stewart with his arm action would be a great candidate to throw a 1-seam fastball. He went down to the minor leagues, spent time with Cole, developed that pitch. Cole came up to the big leagues, pitching, believe it or not, almost exclusively with that offering. He was throwing about 85% 1-seam fastballs and had a lot of success in the last month of the season. So now Cole Stewart's career is taken to another level by a guy like Josh Kolk. He's influencing a lot of our other pitchers. He's part of a team of guys who are really trying to help accentuate the abilities we have on the pitching side of the game.
Blake, let me ask you about that because the analytic influence in baseball is quite profound, and it's really gained momentum over the last few years. When you're out there, though, on the mound, do you consider things like that, or is that all preparatory work before you get out to the bullpen?
I think it's both. I think you're obviously doing your preparatory work to know each individual hitter in the lineup, but also when you go out there on a day-to-day basis, you're going to be able to feel some different things. Maybe your fastball has that good life that day, or my splits maybe a good it's dropping, the bottom's dropping out or whatnot. You kind of have a good feel for that while you're on the mound. So it's kind of just in-game adjustments, but you definitely have that preparatory work as well.
Okay, we got a question here. Guy's got a Twins cap on, Twins T-shirt, and a Twins jersey, so he gets the microphone. Your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Bill. I'm from Crookston. For our new players, that's 300 miles from here, so you have a huge, huge outstate contingent, so I'm representing them today. My questions to our general manager, talk about the opener situation with pitching this year. A lot of people kind of don't know about it. My feeling is if it wins games, go for it. How do you determine which starting pitchers we have? You use the opener for, number one, on the front end. On the back end, how does that change? For instance, you really don't maybe have the 7th or 8th inning guy. Do you just have the closer? Just tell us a little bit about that, because I think we're going to be using that this year.
Well, I think it all starts with the point you just made, Bill, which is we are trying to be creative in any way, shape, or form we can to win baseball games. So we want to appreciate the tradition of the game, the history of the game, but we also want to take advantages on the margins that may help us get that extra out, advance the extra run, or score the extra run to win a baseball game. So the genesis of the opener, which I think we saw really used most extensively last year by the Tampa Bay Rays, is the mere premise that if we're all inclined to bring Blake Parker in to face the number 1, 2, and 3 hitters in the 7th inning because he's best suited to get those guys out, why don't you start the game with him, neutralize those hitters right out of the chute? There's a disproportionate number of runs that are scored in the first inning typically in games. So if you can kind of knock the other team on its heels to start the game, you then regain the advantage. Then also you couple that up with we've gotten so much more sophisticated as to how we evaluate pitchers. One of those ways is really looking at the first, second, third time through the lineup. So when hitters like Jonathan get to see a pitcher, the same pitcher a third time, he starts performing a lot better. And sometimes it's not just subtle. It's, you're performing okay the first time through, a little better the second time through, and then significantly better the third time through. So I think to answer your question about which pitchers are more eligible for this consideration are the pitchers who tend not to do quite as well the third time through the lineup. So the goal in the opener then is, let's just use Blake as an example. Let's say Blake starts the game. If everything goes to plan, he pitches 2 innings, he goes 3 up, 3 down both those innings. Now all of a sudden your starter, who has struggled with the third time through, starts his game facing the 7, 8, 9 hitters. So now the third time through from him is facing those 7, 8, 9 hitters, not necessarily the 1 through 5 hitters in the lineup. So not only have we used him to the best of his ability to neutralize those top 6 hitters, but now we've put the starting pitcher in a much better position to succeed. Now maybe he can pitch 6 innings instead of 5, 7 innings instead of 6. In the best case scenario, now it eliminates the need for your 7th inning guy because your starter now is that 7th inning guy. and your seventh inning guy is the guy who's helped the starter get through those innings. So I think it's just one of the many ways that we'll try to employ our pitching staff, our offense, to try to win baseball games and do everything creative we possibly can to achieve that.
All right, I'm going to get to some more questions here, but I want to draw your attention now to my right. You see these big tubs of bubble gum back here? Those are $50 a piece, with all the money going to the Twins Community Fund, of course. But within all that bubble gum, which, by the way, is good for you. You know, there's a lot of sugar. Don't listen to your dentist. Bubble gum's good for you. But within each tub, there's either an autographed baseball, 2 Twins tickets, and in one of those over there, there are catch tickets for viewing a game out in center field. So anyway, consider that $50, and you get a couple of Twins tickets or an autographed baseball. Don't expect Rogers Hornsby. Don't expect Roger Clemens, but you know, there might be a Tony Oliva ball in there. There might be a Jonathan Schoop ball in there. So anyway, consider that. There's one right there. Okay, Kirby Puckett? Oh, number of the bucket. Okay, sure. Good luck to you. Yeah. All right, your question.
I'm Noah from Minnetonka. This is for Thad. Have you had any dialogue with Craig Kimbrell? Because I think he'd be a perfect fit here, and I just think we need a solid closer.
Thank you, Noah. So as a point of reference, Minnetonka is not 300 miles away. It's right next door. There are some local fans here as well. So have we spoken to Craig Kimbrell? So we would agree with your assessment that Craig Kimbrell is one of the more elite relievers in the game. I would just say this, because we're probably not going to publicize exactly the conversations we're having right now with free agents, but we were strategic this year and last in terms of trying to address our most prominent needs early in the offseason, 2 of whom you see sitting here filled those spots, but also to keep some of our powder dry. So we have some reserves right now in case we felt that there was a opportunity late in the offseason, whether that be a free agent acquisition, whether it be a trade acquisition, somebody that could really elevate our team. So between Derek Falvey and myself, we're still in constant conversation with agents who represent players that we believe fall in that bucket. Concurrently, we're also talking to teams right now about trade acquisitions that we think could really elevate our team. So right now, I think we feel very good about our 2019 team. If opening day was tomorrow, we would hope we would be starting on the road in a dome. And 2, we'd feel very confident in that team's ability to win baseball games. The beauty is we have a lot of time in between now and opening day. There are a lot of players out there yet to sign. We will be still active in those conversations. Whether or not they come to fruition, yet to be determined.
Way over here, and I believe we have the youngest Twins fan here, but the question's not going to come from her. What's your name and where are you from?
I'm Derek Potter. I'm from Rochester. This is Radke here that I'm holding here. So she was born a Twins fan. I guess my question is for Thad. It's about the Martin Perez signing. It was kind of an intriguing signing when it was announced. I'm just kind of curious what kind of things you guys saw in Martin Perez that maybe you thought would make him a valuable addition to the pitching rotation, if there's maybe some untapped potential that you see in him, or if there's maybe something like spin rate maybe that drew you guys to add him to the rotation or the bullpen.
Sure. So I think that actually ties a number of the questions together, and I'll try to do it this way, is Jonathan Schoop recommended we sign Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz recommended we sign Martin Perez. Josh Kulk recommended we sign Martin Perez, and I got a chance to work with Martin Perez in Texas. Just for the fans who maybe aren't as familiar with him, he's from Venezuela. He's from Valencia, Venezuela. When I was in Texas, we signed him when he was 16 years old. He's a left-handed pitcher, a very intelligent, very athletic left-handed pitcher. He throws 92 to 96 miles an hour with a 4-pitch mix. A little bit of a common refrain. He had a little bit of a difficult season last year. It was on the heels of the fact that he has a ranch. He lives actually north of Valencia, I apologize. He has a ranch there, and one of his bulls, I think, charged him, threw him off a horse. He's left-handed and shattering his right arm. So last year he was recovering from that injury, and believe it or not, even as a left-handed pitcher, his right arm's incapacity really, I think, impacted his season. We believe that. So Josh Kolk looks at the films. He looks at the pitch mix, and he believes that there's ways that we can really help him regain his peak performance when he was a 200-inning pitch left-handed pitcher, and really an up-and-coming starting rotation guy in the game, a guy who people thought could climb a rotation, maybe end up being a second or third starter in the game. So we see a lot of positives in him. Similar to Jonathan, he's 27 years old, so he's right in the prime of his career. Similar to Blake, we were able to get him on a one-year deal with an option, so we could have him for 2 seasons. So we think there's a lot of room for him to improve and to recapture his potential that he had shown in the major leagues as recently as 2016, 15, and 17, when he was really a stalwart in the rotation for the Texas Rangers. So it's another addition of a guy that we feel is in his prime, a guy who we think is poised to rebound from a little bit of a dip in performance last year, but for a lot of reasons that are clear to us, we're excited to have him. He's intelligent, he's athletic, he's left-handed, he throws up to 96, and he's 27 years old. We're going to take chances on guys like that, especially ones that are open-minded to some of the teachings and resources we'll put around them, hopefully to achieve at the major league level.
We have a question right here in front. Young lady?
I'm Carol from St. Paul. You talking about Michael Pineda being in the rotation. There was something the latter part of last year that he had a setback or something. What was that about, and where's he at?
So Michael Pineda is another kind of chance we took last offseason. He was recovering from Tommy John surgery. Maybe Jonathan can talk about hitting off of Michael Pineda at some point here after I talk about him. He's an intimidating man. He's got a real big heart. Don't tell the other players in the American League because he's really intimidating physically. Just let them be scared of him. The setback he had last year was not arm related. It was knee related. So he was slated to come back and pitch for us in September on his rehab assignment. He kind of tweaked his knee. We figured for where we were in the season, we wanted to commit to him in 2019. We didn't want to risk any further injury. I'm sure Blake could attest. If some part of your body hurts, you put a lot of stress and strain on your arm that you weren't expecting, and you could create another injury. So we wanted to make sure he was full go for 2019. We wanted to overprotect him at that time, but he is full go, and he is ready to rock and roll. But I'd be interested to hear Jonathan's take on facing him as a hitter.
Facing him is tough. He's scary. He's intimidated. He's big, and he's confident. He's a cocky pitcher, so you go out there, and he's going to attack you, and it's a tougher bet. It's a tougher bet. Like, if you face him, you don't want to get in there because he's attacking you, and he's a really good pitcher. He got good life on his ball, and he's not scared. He's coming after you, and be ready.
Jonathan, you're what, 6'4"?
No, I'm actually 6'2.5". I look bigger.
Maybe by design, maybe not, but these guys are going to have a really good season, going to have a really good baseball team. But you put together a pretty good-looking basketball team. Pineda's what, 6'7"?
Yeah, we've got Pineda's at least 6'7". C.J. Cron's got to be 6'3". Blake's a big man.
Right.
Nelson Cruz is 6'3" probably. I mean, our off-season twofold was bringing a lot of beef and a lot of people from Arkansas.
All right, you got a question here.
Hi, gentlemen. I'm Pete from Minneapolis. And first, I want to say how excited I am for this season. I think the moves you've made with the hiring of Rocco and everything you've done, Jonathan, bringing him and Blake, and all the other guys you brought in, I see no reason this team won't finish first. Having said that, I just wanted to ask, for Blake and Jonathan, what's a typical day like on a road, when you're away from Target Field on a road trip? What's a typical day like, and what's your favorite city to visit, and why?
Favorite city? Actually, I like it here when I was playing in Baltimore. I like here, so you wake up. I wake up at 10, 11, get something to eat, and then relax a little bit, talk with your family, and then head to the field. So we were staying in Lowe's, so you walk to the field, and then you walk in here, and then you eat a little bit, and then you go work out and do your routine hitting, and then get ready for the game. So it's similar. Every day is similar. Same thing again.
Yeah, I think the days for the pitchers and the hitters are pretty similar as far as times go. But When we get there, it's grab a bite to eat and run out to the field and get your arm going. We like to throw as pitchers. We like to throw as soon as we get there, as early as possible, just so we can have a little bit more recovery time before the game gets going. But aside from if you're going to throw like a bullpen session or a side session, it's just get your arm going, get your workout in, and shag a few balls and get your mind right, ready for the game. It's more of a preparation, a mental preparation, I think, for us than it is physically, because we all have a specific routine that we go through each and every day. So just getting your mind right, whether it be preparing for the hitters, or if you're a hitter, preparing for the pitchers that you may be facing that day, but mentally preparing, I think, separates it.
Thad, in your time in the game, I think you've seen what I've seen, but being a Major League Baseball player, the game and preparing for it consumes more and more of a player's day than it used to not that long ago.
Oh, it's quite remarkable when you're traveling with a team on the road, which we do as well from time to time. Is you got a 7 o'clock game, you go to the ballpark sometime between noon and 2, and most of the guys are already there. And as these guys referenced, they're working out. They're going to do a full workout in the gym. They're doing video work. They're doing one-on-one work with their specific position coach. He's in the cage working on something. He's breaking down all the hitters from the other team. It's become such a balance between physical and cerebral preparation for a major league game. My guess is by the time they get to the game, that's the easy part of the night. It's all the prep work that goes in, and then when the game's over, Jonathan referenced he wakes up at 10 in the morning, which for most of us who work, that's a little bit later than most of us wake up. It would be glorious, but the reality is, some of these guys after the game, keep in mind they're going to the training room, they're getting all their work done. We all focus on rehabbing injuries. Well, we're now trying to prehab injuries, so we're trying to do things beforehand to try to keep them healthy for the next day. Because keep in mind, you finish a game at 10:30 at night, and he may have a day game the very next day. You got to recover in between that time and the time that you're going back on the field the next day. That's pretty significant. So they're spending a lot of time with the medical staff, with the strength and conditioning staff. The bus leaves to get back to the hotel maybe at 12:30 or 1 in the morning, and you get settled in. And as you guys can imagine, one of the biggest challenges I think for players too is you get so exhilarated to play a Major League Baseball game, you don't just go back to the hotel room and just fall right asleep. You're fired up. You want to talk to somebody, recap the game, or talk to your friends and family who you hadn't gotten a chance to touch base with. So it's a little bit more of a schedule push towards the nocturnal side of things. But between game preparation, video work, analytics work, all the resources we put around these guys, training and strength and conditioning, it's a significant commitment with very few off days throughout the course of when you start spring training to hopefully playing deep into October. You're talking about a 9-month run with maybe 25 off days. It's a pretty significant clip for these guys.
Got a question right here.
Carter from Albertville. Will Blake be used more primarily as a reliever or a closer?
So that is a good question. So I think once again I wouldn't rule out the fact that he may start a game from time to time. We may view him as the perfect opener from time to time, but I think the way we're looking at the back end of our team right now in terms of the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings is we feel we have no fewer than 5 or 6 guys capable of getting 3 of those outs in winning situations against the best hitters. Blake is clearly one of the more experienced guys in that field, but I do think we have maybe 5 guys on our roster right now who've at least accumulated 1 save in their career. Blake has accumulated a far greater deal than just that. So I think he'll be given every opportunity to pitch sometimes in the 9th and close out games. But as I said earlier, I think the way that Wes Johnson and Rocco Baldelli may choose to use our relievers is, hey, if we got murderer's row of 3 really tough right-hand hitters coming up in the 8th inning, we may call Blake's name. And then that may mean Taylor Rogers will face the lefties in the 9th inning or vice versa. Trevor May will be in that conversation. Addison Reed will be in that conversation. So I think we've got a lot of weapons for them to deploy. And if we're winning as many games as we hope to win in 2019, we're going to need about 5 or 6 guys capable of getting those last, 3 of those last 9 outs, because these guys can't pitch every single day. So I think it'll be strength in numbers for us. It's going to be a unit of guys who collectively will accumulate a lot of saves. But to us, probably even more important than the saves themselves are guys who can just neutralize good hitting late in games.
We are way over to the stages left here.
My name is Mike, and I'm from St. Paul, and my question is for Thad. With the huge emphasis as far as analytics in regard to how teams are defensing hitters, is it fair to say that if a team is actually taking the analytics from their side for defensive shifts, that on the flip side you're counteracting that with the fact that all your players should be able to lay a bunt down to take advantage of the opportunity that's wide open from and move runners around?
First of all, I just would like to say something noteworthy to me based upon all the questions that have been asked. I think literally every question is from somebody who lives in a different city, and we sincerely appreciate all the amazing efforts you guys are making to come out on a very wintry day here to spend time with us. We don't take that lightly, and Twins territory, these guys will get to know, is such a large group of people from so many different states, and we feel your passion and your heartbeat. So now to get to your question, I think the answer is yes. I think that is something we're trying to do throughout the minor leagues, is even the guys who are hitting 3, 4, 5 in the lineup, if you can drop that bunt down the third base line, they're going to stop shifting on you at some point. And I get it that sometimes an offensive player, the best case scenario in that at bat is you get to first base. So you're giving up the chance for a double, triple, or a home run. But my supposition is if you do that a few times, they're shifting the third baseman back over. Now you're getting the shortstop back on the left side of the infield. It decongests the infield there and gives you a real chance to now open the field wide again. So I don't know, Jonathan, you're feeling about as a hitter, I don't know to what extent you faced a lot of shifts. It would be different for you, obviously, but thought cross your mind at all when you go up there to consider bunting to take advantage of what they're doing out there?
Yeah, of course. But for right, it's tough because they're going to shift the other way. So the first base is going to be there. So you got to lay off a good bunt still to get there. For lefty, it's easier because the third base is going to go all the way to the other side. So you just got to drop it down the third base and nobody is there. For right, it's different. But in my career, so when I come up, I bunt. So I still can bunt. So if it's there, especially late in the game, it's man on second, zero out, and you know you're not doing that good, so you got to drop it down so the other guys can drive him in for you. So it's just teamwork. So whatever you can do to win, it's all about winning. Sometimes it's not about you. It's about the team. It's about win. If you win, and everybody will have fun.
And I think that falls under the category of the question earlier about the opener. We're going to try to do everything we can to win baseball games. And if it's employing bunts from the middle of our order, as Jonathan said, to lead off the ninth inning when we're down 1 run, we're going to attempt that.
Hey, let me ask you to look into your crystal ball. 5 years from now, will we see any full-time closers? Because it's not just the Twins. Other teams, Blake said the Angels last year didn't really have a full-time closer, but almost as if there was a rotation in the bullpen. So you think in 5 years the Kimbrels of the world will be like dinosaurs?
Well, one thing, and I think this links to that question, Dick, is one thing we are asked often is like, are we going to start calling these guys something other than starters, relievers, and closers? And I think one thing we may start seeing here soon is when our scouts go out and evaluate pitchers, they're saying, I think this guy has a chance to be a number 2 starter, or I think this guy could be a middle inning reliever, or I think this guy could be a closer. I wonder if they're going to start evaluating pitchers based upon how many outs in a game they think they're capable of getting. Like this could be a 15-out guy. This guy could be a 6-out guy. This guy could be a 3-out guy. Based upon how many outs you think they could give you, may actually start backing them into the roles that they need to play on your team. I think we're going to continue to start getting extremely creative as to how we deploy our 12-man pitching staffs.
Okay, question over here.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I'm from Lakeville. This question is for Blake. I was wondering what inspires or motivates you to play to the best of your ability?
Well, not only do I play for the fans in the stadium and my teammates that I'm going to war with every day, but I play for the name on my back. I play for my family. I represent my home state. I represent the ones who came before me. I take a lot of pride in being a man of a good character. I just like competing. I go out there and I love the competition. I love to help my teammates. I love to be a guy that my teammates can lean a shoulder on and come talk to if they want to. But I think most of all, I love to compete and I love to go out there and try to help my team any way I can. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, we had a question right in front here, right over here, third row, I guess.
Paul from Monticello Big Lake. The question I had is, you hear a lot of data or read a lot of data stuff about the stolen base as a giveaway out. So how do you guys feel about that? Is that a giveaway out, or comment on that? And
not when you're safe. we like it when it works. I mean, I think we've got one of the most elite base stealers in the major leagues on our team. You know, we expect that to be a significant weapon for him. Sometimes just the threat of the stolen base creates havoc and could impact, you know, a pitcher when they're on the mound. You know, maybe Blake, you could attest to, when you're on the mound and a guy's on first base who you believe has a chance to steal second, how much does that distract you and affect your concentration?
It's something that you have to work on. You definitely have to be ready for anything, obviously, but it's another part of the preparation process. You have to do the little things, whether it be working on your pickoffs, or I heard recently they're changing the third to first rule, aren't they? I need to kind of dive into that, but you know, working on the little things so you can be the complete player that you need to be, and holding runners is one of those little things. You know, there's so many little things that you can do to elevate your game, and things like that's big. So being able to neutralize that from the pitching side of it is easy if you just prepare, and you know, you're not out there and expecting something that you're not ready for, I guess.
And I think from an offensive strategic standpoint, the more he has to think about things other than getting the hitter out and executing pitches, the better off we think our offensive's chances of doing some damage when they're up there. So even if it's not actually stealing the base, the threat of stealing the base and being known for a team that's willing to be aggressive, I think is something we want to promote.
I suspect most people here have played ball of some sort, baseball or softball, and if you've pitched, you know how much difference it really is. A game of inches. If you're throwing a pitch that's just 2 or 3 inches higher than what you want, the results can be very, very different. So how about a nice hand for our 3 guests up here, Thad Levine, and welcome to Twins territory, Jonathan Schoop and Blake Parker. And I know we've sold a couple of these buckets of bubble gum, so I want to talk about that again. It's really a good deal because you get autographed baseball inside the bucket in addition to all the bubble gum, and a couple, or at least one of the buckets over there, they're tickets for the catch out in center field. So give it a consideration. You can take the prize out of there like I do with the Cracker Jack, and then give somebody else the bubble gum if you like, if you don't like bubble gum. It's a good deal over there, so consider that. Thank you folks very much for this forum here on Facebook, and enjoy TwinsFest. Stay warm, everyone.